What's up? Eco-friendly car. That's Tony. Hey, Tony. And that's cool. Hey, cool.
Hello.
Hello.
Recording?
Yes.
It's too early for this shit, dog.
I know.
Get in the car. Get in the car.
It's a mystery to me. We have agreed with which we have agreed. And you think you have to want more than you need. Until you have it all, you won't be free. Society, you're a crazy breed. I hope you're not lonely without me. When you want more than you have, you think you need. And when you think more than you want, your thoughts begin to bleed. I think I need to find a bigger place. 'Cause when you have more than you think, you need more space. Society, you're a crazy breed. I hope you're not lonely without me. Society, crazy indeed. I hope you're not lonely without me.
Cool and I are very tired. We have had 3 planes. We are hungry. We just want to get out. We are 3 hours jet lagged. But before we start doing those things, I wanted to let you know that tomorrow at 8:30 in the morning, we have an interview with Della. Della is a project manager for the 142 bus. And if we're lucky, we're going to be able to go very, very close to Chris's last resting place. So, see you tomorrow.
My guy, are you on your mic?
No, not yet. The mic for the interview.
Okay.
This is either B-roll or you know, short roll.
Okay.
Right to scene. I might use this one actually.
All right. Well, if they can't hear you, that's your fault then, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Are you excited?
So excited, for sure. It's gonna be a great morning. Great. Hopefully nobody's creeped out that a bunch of old men are coming by with a camera.
We're an old man.
We're old.
We're not old. We're Augsburg.
We're still old.
Oh God.
Have no fear for when I'm alone. I'll be better off than I was before. I've got this life. I'll be around to grow who I was before. I cannot recall long nights allow me to feel I'm falling, I am falling, the lights go out. Let me feel I'm falling, I am falling safely to the ground. I'll take this soul that's inside me now, like a brand new friend. I'll forever know I've got this light in the will to show. I will always be better than before. Long nights allow me to feel I'm falling, I am falling, the lights go out. Let me feel I'm falling, I am falling safely to the ground.
So this is a 1946 International Harvester K5. That's the model of the bus. So the bus has an interesting history even before Chris Mccandless visited the bus. So based on what we've seen of the bus, there's a base coat of this kind of army green color. And so we believe that it was originally created or used as a military bus. And then based on the color of the paint, we believe that it was painted yellow to be used as a school bus. So that's kind of what you see fading through. And then it was used as a Fairbanks City Transit bus. That's the green and the white. And then after that, we think it probably got into a car accident because the front fender is like really crunched. So they probably stopped using it as a city bus at that point. And it was purchased by the Mariner family, who used it on the Stampede Trail. And then, for years, decades, hunters and trappers and other people, using the wilderness for what it's used for, use the bus as a place to stay. So as a shelter for lots of people for a long time. And then the most famous, why we know about the bus is in 1992. Chris Mccandless also found the bus and used it as a shelter. And unfortunately, he did pass away. And so since then, there's been a famous book and a famous movie. And a lot of people have taken kind of a pilgrimage out to the site. So in doing so, some people have died. Some people have gotten stranded and needed to be rescued. And so that is why we now have the bus. The state of Alaska decided that they needed to remove it from their land. They own land, and it was becoming an issue. So they removed it, and they asked for a bidding process to see where to put the bus, maybe at some kind of repository. The Museum of the North, which is where I work, they already have a repository agreement with the state, and we have lots of objects that the state owns. So the state does own the bus. We're taking care of it for them. And so the plan is, right now we're doing a conservation project to stabilize the bus and make it safe for visitation and make it so it doesn't continue to degrade over time. And the ultimate plan is to put it on display behind the museum in the woods so that people can continue to visit it outdoors. I think so. I think now it does. So it has multiple stories, right? It has a lot of stories to tell. Um, you know, there's the whole history of the bus. And so the way we're going to be working on the exhibit is to kind of place the bus as a character in 20th century history. So, or 21st century history. So the bus has seen a lot. It's seen a lot of people come through. And so, yeah, Chris is definitely one character, one part of that story. And obviously, based on all the graffiti that you can see on the bus, maybe the largest character, of that story. But there's a lot of ways to look at this artifact, and hopefully we can get people who don't necessarily connect with Chris's story. We're hoping that they can connect with it in another way, like the idea of wilderness, the idea of sites of memory. Like, for some people, this is about connecting to Chris, but it might also just be about connecting with people who they've lost, other people who have felt the need to put themselves at risk. A lot of people do rites of passage in their lives, and some survive and some don't. We'll also be talking about just missing people in Alaska. There's a lot of missing people in Alaska, and a lot of them are Alaska Native. And so that'll be part of the story that we want to tell as well. So it's not just about one person, but it's kind of connecting this in many different ways to nature and the environment and other stories. I believe, the artifacts, the things that he left behind were given to his family after he passed away. And then a lot of people have asked me if Chris signed the bus or wrote something or did any kind of graffiti on the bus. It's possible he did. There's a lot of graffiti, and a lot of it has rusted away and is illegible. So I've done this documentation project where I've systematically photographed all of the graffiti. I can't say I have read all of it, but I have photographed all of it. And part of my project is to put all of that into a system where we can share it online, and then people can write into us and say, hey, that's my signature, and then share their story about their trip to the bus and their connection. So possible somebody else may see something Chris wrote that I don't know about, but we'll see. Yeah, well, so it's difficult to say. I would say both. I, on a personal level, don't necessarily connect with Chris's story like in a really emotional way, like a lot of people do. But I understand it. Like I can definitely empathize with that, and I understand. I didn't grow up in Alaska, and I grew up like in a city, and I grew up kind of like not connected to nature. So I can understand the idea of like wanting to break out of the system and do something beyond the bounds of society. And I can see the idea of needing to do a rite of passage in order to really push yourself. Like I can understand that idea. And I can understand why Chris and a lot of other people feel the need to do that. I don't know about the idea that he was irresponsible. It's hard to say. I didn't know him. I didn't talk to him. I don't know his, motivations. I think he made a mistake. And I think there were possibly ways, like there's been a lot of research papers published about like, the water flow at that time of the year. And if he had waited until this date, then he could have crossed the river. Or if he had walked upstream or downstream, he could have found a different way and he could have gotten out. I don't know if that's lack of preparation. Maybe he was exhausted. Maybe he was injured. I don't know. So it's hard to say whether he was irresponsible or just made a mistake. I understand both sides of it. And what I find really fun and interesting is how passionate people are about the bus on both sides. So people who love the bus, people who really hate the bus, like the bus itself, they hate the bus. and the bus didn't really do anything. So yeah, it's fascinating to me how this tangible object elicits such a response, of emotional response. And I've wondered if the bus was not left on the Stampede Trail, there was no bus, and Chris had gone out there and maybe passed away in the same way, but just not in the bus, would the story be as famous? If there was no tangible object to tie this, like, this pilgrimage and all this. So, very fascinating object. So there's an iconic photograph of Chris sitting on this side of the bus in a chair that he took of himself. And in that photo, you can see the number. So the bus is number 142 from the city transit system, and you can see the number up in that area. And so sometime after the book was published, I'm not sure, it may have been after the movie, I don't know exactly the timeline, but we can tell from photographs, like, it was not shot and then it was shot between a few dates. So somebody decided to target the 142. So there's bullet holes kind of scattered all over the bus, but the majority of them are right on the 142. And it's even like they went so far as to like go on the 1 and the 4, like they were trying to like outline the number by shooting it. And so, we don't know why they did it, but it feels like destructive. It doesn't feel like something that was a positive message per se. So destroying this iconic piece that a lot of people were taking photographs to mimic, to recreate that same photograph. It feels like somebody doing something to try to take away that component of the bus for people who connect to it. That is hard to say. So I read the Into the Wild book, which has, kind of some theories about why he wanted to kind of take this, I guess, journey for himself. And he traveled all over. It's definitely a psychology question.
It is.
Yes.
Indeed.
I think a lot of people, and I don't know if it's a male-female thing. I personally think a lot of men feel the need to have some kind of rite of passage in their lives. Women have a physical rite of passage. Women start their periods. Men don't have that. So I wonder if this need to like push yourself and undergo some kind of physical change is something that men do more than women. I'm not really sure. That's a whole other research paper. But there's more. There's another book that's written by Kareen that talks about their family that may affect his psychology at that time and why he chose to put himself in that position. I think people feel the need to push themselves, and Chris wanted to push himself to an extreme so that he could maybe know what it's like to feel a certain way, to feel in danger, to feel like you can survive on your own, whatever that may be. A lot of people do that, and a lot of people live,
Yeah.
and some people die. So I don't think it's an uncommon thing what he did. It's just the whole story is less common, maybe. So we have a crowdfunding page. So if you go to the Museum of the North's website, you can find it through where the Ethnology and History Department, and the bus project is linked there, and you can read more about the project as a whole and the exhibit and our plans. But there's also a link to the live stream of the bus. You can watch the bus all the time. And then if you'd like to contribute to the project, you can also donate to Friends of Bus 142. That Kareen runs that organization, and they're also helping support this project. So a couple of ways that you can connect and check it out and donate.
After my interview with Della, two ideas became clear to me. The first one is that the bus itself has become a character in Chris's story. It has become iconic. And the second one is that not everyone views Chris's story as good or as an example to follow. So, I decided to go out and ask people that don't have a close relationship with the bus or with the story their thoughts about Chris. So, we hit the hotel's bar.
Okay, this is the tequila that you're gonna pour into your drink when I hand it to you.
Perfect.
It's infused with these butterfly pea flowers.
Okay. All of it?
All of it.
And then your second one, or the second swan, is nice kind of set space. And
Oops.
then your back door.
Now stir it. And it'll start going pink from the bottom.
Oh, do I stir it? Is it better if I stir it? Erla.
Royal Space Camp, there was one was 7. I think today when yesterday when I it was 8.
Oh.
What is he drinking?
Cool, this is B-roll, okay? This is B-roll. Nothing.
I think he means viral.
No, B-roll.
So I was born and raised in Fairbanks, Alaska. My dad had a bar on the infamous 2nd Avenue during the pipeline. I lived here all through my childhood. Left when I was 18 for 10 years, and I'm back again raising my child here because it's a better place. Yes, I have. I absolutely think everybody has, but I found out today that I was wrong. A lot of people don't know about him, but yes, I do know. Lately, I think he's an idiot. I mean, I have to say, I work in tourism, and so a lot of people come here and they don't know anything about Alaska, but they are also staying in a hotel with shuttle drivers, and they have accommodations that you need. This gentleman came up here and was dropped off in the middle of the woods. We're on the side of the road of the woods, and he had no map, no knowledge, no gear, no food, no anything. And anybody that's from Alaska knows that that's the dumbest thing you could possibly do. That's what I think he was doing, was underestimating it. I don't know if it was disrespect in that regards, but he definitely does not know that the woods can take you very quickly, especially here in Alaska. Lots of people died just driving their car when it breaks down. So I feel like going out into the open woods with no knowledge or gear is ridiculous. I feel like the movie is what really caused all of the chaos about this bus, is because it kind of made him seem like, I don't know, like a hero in a way. Like people wanted to be him. They wanted to see what he went through. And I feel like he's an idiot. So people started going out there and trying to find the bus, and then they'd end up dying, or we'd have to go send the rescue team for them. And it ended up costing the state so much money. That's why they finally just airlifted the bus out of the location. No, I don't, because the bus was something that they were able to go see. It's like they wanted to be him, like live in his shoes, or however that is, and that was because of the movie. Nobody really wanted to go live in the woods and die. Once you read the book, that's kind of how it happened. He went out there and he died, and then the bus just made it seem like he was, I don't know, I can't really explain how it made it. It just made people feel like he was a better person than he was, in my opinion. And I feel like people going to see the bus, like I feel like people were not educated on what the bus really stood for. I mean, it's just a bus, and it held a person who died. That's really all it is. People they didn't come when they read the book. They waited until the movie. So I feel like the bus was just its own entity, actually. I'd ask him if he had a map. No, I think that I would probably try to discourage him for a second, but when people want to do something like that, they're going to do it anyways, and I could just wish them the best of luck, I guess.
Entonces, Kira habla español, perfecto.
Sí,
¿Cómo estás, Kira? ¿Todo bien?
muy bien, gracias. Por favor, pregúntame en inglés.
Okay, of course,
Okay,
absolutely.
es mejor. I read the book, and I think I saw the movie too. I had very mixed feelings about him and the situation. I thought he was foolish in not doing his research ahead of time if he was going to go live in the wild to know what the flora and fauna would present throughout the year. And the fact that he died because of the berries he ate and he couldn't get away made me sad for him. If he'd done a little research, then he would have survived. He wasn't too far off from the road. And I appreciated the independent thinking that he exhibited by just leaving his life and experimenting. I don't think I don't know what he intended, but I think there's a call to the wild that he heard. I mean, Rumi talked about few people hear the call, even fewer heed the call. And I think that the creatives and the romantics among us heed the call. And he heeded the call. And he was lucky to be privileged enough to do so. And it's a pity that he died by failing to use that intellect that he'd acquired from his privilege to learn how to survive if he wanted to heed the call. So I had mixed feelings. I think it's, no. I think having something that people can go and see.
Intangible.
Yeah. I mean, how many times are you driving down a freeway and you see flowers and little altars for people that have passed on the side of the road? And even if you don't know the person, you don't know the circumstances, you pause and you reflect on it for a moment. You think, oh, somebody died there. Oh, I wonder what their life was like. Yeah. So if it's just a tent, it would dissolve and be gone. Like so many deaths, like you don't think about them all the time. Maybe you do if you look up in the stars, but not here on Earth. So I think having an altar of sorts with a van that is like decrepit and overgrown and, you know, that makes you think, what a pity. And how exciting that he went and did it and lived like that. Maybe dying wasn't failure for him. Maybe dying was transcending to the next level.
After the interviews with Tiffany and Kira were done, I thought that it would be a great idea to ask my very own friend what he thought about the trip and of Chris, and with the help of Kelly, this is what he had to say.
Talk to me about the worst part of this trip.
All right, so the worst part of this trip was me not knowing what we were doing, going to the car rental, being told that North Pole is in Alaska, going to the North Pole Santa shop, and Santa wasn't even there. That was probably the worst. That's probably the worst thing so far of this trip. And how are you not working at your own shop?
Santa was off duty.
He was off duty.
He was off duty.
Oh, and then the reindeers wasn't even like full. I mean, I was expecting like full on antlers and whatnot, but only one of them had antlers, and there was one missing. Like, how does that even happen? I don't even know. Discount. We didn't even pay anything. It was free, but it's still disappointing.
A unicorn. You saw a unicorn.
It wasn't a horn. It was an antler there. So
listen, still a unicorn.
Sure.
All right. And tell me, what about this random quest your friend has to find out the truth about this wanderer?
I think he's just stretching. He's just trying to find any kind of inkling of hope that he can justify what Christopher did. So,
what's your opinion on what Christopher did and why he did it?
I think he was just a troubled man who needed help with his psyche, and at the time, I suppose it wasn't really readily available. And it was just a guy who was unfortunate. Definitely had a good head on his shoulders, but he was definitely coming from a spoiled background, so he didn't know any better. And with people not really advising him to do otherwise. He just continued on his path to Alaska, and he just met his end here, which is unfortunate.
And forget the spoiled part.
Right.
If you were to make that decision in your lifetime and repeat the question, what would influence you to make the same decision?
Honestly, for me, what would motivate me is if I had nothing else. If I was at a loss in life and I needed direction, and with knowing that I can trust to advise me to go on the right path, I would just do the first thing that came to my mind. And for me, as a person who I would say is a more of a logical person, I cannot do emotional, or I can't make like emotional decisions like he did, which I feel is what he did throughout the whole trip. I feel like if it was me, the one thing that I would want people to take away from all of this would be the fact that it's okay to ask for help, and you don't have to tackle on the problems of the world alone. But that's probably the only thing I can think of.
I think that's beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
それらが結ばれるのは真の像